Hey everyone, we are live. My name's Christian Pavarelli, and we are here with another episode. I'm the founder and CEO of We Are No Code, and today I have a very dear friend of mine and one of the people I respect the most in the LO ecosystem. Her name is Jasmine. She's the CEO of Pitch Genius. Jasmine, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. This is super exciting.
Yeah, it's your first LinkedIn Live, right? It's stressful, right?
It is a little stressful, and I'm actually gonna put my phone on silent so we don't have that moment where someone's calling me and
Exactly.
interrupting.
I have moments where I have things pop up on my screen and my eyes kind of shift to something, and I try to, so I've rewatched some of the videos I've made, and it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I think that that's kind of one of the exciting things about what's happening on LinkedIn is that we're moving towards a place where we're showing ourselves as well as talking about business things. And I think that it's actually very good because for a long time we kind of ignored a lot of that. But before getting into that,
Sure.
why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at Pitch Genius?
Pitch Genius it's kind of morphing from a boutique pitch deck consulting firm into this outsourced startup founding team. But essentially what we have been doing for the past 3+ years is developing investor communications materials and investor decks, pitch decks for early stage startups who are raising a seed or a Series A. So that's really been my personal focus for the past 5 years, which is kind of crazy. And now we've gotten to this beautiful place where 42% of our clients have successfully raised. And we put a lot of effort into making sure that their pitch and how they're communicating with investors is going to open doors for them.
42% of your startups or the people that you've helped with their decks have been able to raise capital. I'm guessing, and just so it's clear to some of the viewers who are sort of first-time entrepreneurs, that part of that is because you select startups who are ready to raise, correct?
Good business model and a good startup and solid founders is really what raises money in the end. The pitch deck for a long time has become this huge barrier to communicating a good investment opportunity. But founders, those founders that come to us and really have no merit to actually raise money, we turn them away with resources, of course, but yeah, we don't take them on as clients. So that definitely attributes to why our success rate is so high. It is also just the methodology that we use to create pitch decks for our clients.
So what would you say some of the main criteria are from your perspective, point of view, experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Main criteria would be at least to have some kind of MVP with market validation. An MVP with market validation is kind of on the low side of traction, right? That's bare minimum of really what you would want before considering to raise from investors. And when you're in that position, I think it's also important to ask yourself, okay, you have this minimal MVP and market validation. Can you gain more traction on your own dime, right? Or is this project just so big and requires that much capital that you want to stop at that moment and actually raise some serious money to get it done right?
It's pretty clear that you need 3 to 6 months traction, basically, if you want to expect a pretty good chance.
These days, yes.
Yeah, specifically, because the cost of building has gone way down. And I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, right? Is that some people go out there and they believe they can just raise with a first product or a really good idea and a good team, or that they can finance the building through an investor. That's kind of, I guess, where, if you absolutely need funding, the recommendation is to raise a little bit of money from friends and family. But more than ever, there are just so many great tools out there to be able to build, to be able to test, to be able to grow, and break in revenues.
Things like no code, right? We're speaking to We Are No Code and all the resources that we have online now, and all of the free resources that the tech community has available to everyone, right? It is there and it is available. I feel like it's been democratized in a lot of ways. I really do feel like as an entrepreneur, it really should be your goal to first of all, understand what is your mission, what do you want to do, what do you want to accomplish, and just go straight for revenue. Just keep going straight for revenue. And raising money is something that you should it should be your goal to raise money once you've hit that stage. And it really has become so much easier to achieve revenue with everything that we have available to us.
There is this big problem in mental health that's coming up, and people sort of like trying entrepreneurship, they don't manage to do it, and then they just like give up on it, and then they go into like depressive states, and it leads to way worse things. We just have to cultivate a healthier sort of conversation around this and be like it's okay. Like we're all like, everyone's going through this. No matter, like, I bet you Elon Musk lays down at night and he just has like certain terrible fears, terrible insecurities that go through his head. And it's like, it's just to say like, that's being human.
Yes.
So embrace it.
I'm going to add to that, having more conversations around this, and healthier conversations around this, was also us individually building healthier relationships with our businesses, with our careers, and with our money. It's so important. It's the one thing, like, I got into entrepreneurship because I wanted freedom, and I ended up feeling so shackled and chained to this business, to the point where I hated it. And I asked myself, why did I do this to myself? And now it feels like this engine that I can't turn off, right? The only thing that has freed myself from that is that detachment, and building a healthier relationship with my business, and realizing, like, yeah, not only is my self-worth not attached to this, right? Like, I'm a valuable person, whether this is successful or not. But also there are more important things outside of just this work, just this. Yes, it's a blessing, but let's look at things outside of that as well. I mean, let's say you work a 60-hour work week. You only work 60 hours a week, and it is a means to what? To an end, to a means to living a better lifestyle, to fulfilling what you value, whatever it is. But it's not life itself. Like, your value and your life does not begin and end with work. There's all of this beautiful white space outside of it.
People are comparing themselves to people who are ahead of them, and it's like, that's a scary thing, because you don't see all the hard work, all the pain that they got through to get to that place, right?
Yes.
And so you just think, you just compare yourself, and this is something that's very, I think, risky in the social media space, is that you end up seeing people who are in front of you, and some of those people really put in a huge amount of work. You don't see what's being put in to get to where they are.
Right.
And so, and it's scary to people. They're like, but this guy's just brilliant,
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, but they didn't just wake up and they were brilliant.
Right.
Like, yes, people are dealt different cards to a certain level, but I definitely think that like hustle sort of trumps the first cards that you were given. And if you kind of lean into the process, and that's why I think it's important for entrepreneurs in general to measure their own success in terms of their improvement. And it connects directly to a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, talking about like, you should always face things with like like saying like, I'm not good at this yet. And to really believe that if you put in the time to be able to learn this thing or to do that thing, that you will get better. And so the more that we kind of like compare ourselves to other people and not to our previous selves, the riskier it is, because it doesn't make sense. Like, who cares if someone's super good at this one thing? Guess what? They probably put in 10,000 hours that you didn't put in.
I preach to my friends and family constantly. Anyone who comes to me who asks, like, how did you do it? It was literally just hard work and commitment. It's not, I am no genius. I know the company's named Pitch Genius, and I joke about that all the time. But really, like, there are so many skills that I lacked when I started, and I just kind of fumbled into figuring out how to make things work, that I'm always telling people, like, seriously, if I can do it with the level of education I had at that point, with I had zero work experience, like very minimal work experience. Also, I kind of just jumped into it. I feel like you can take on that risk and jump into it too. Like, don't be so afraid. Most people who start this journey don't know what they're doing
Yeah.
at all. And you figure it out along the way, and you Google things and you make it work. So that's also a part of that entrepreneurial journey, is like, yeah, like, stay focused. Don't look at the guy who is ahead of you. Who cares about him? Don't worry about whether the money is here or not. You have something that you want to accomplish that you think is going to be successful. Keep pushing forward. Investors are like giving you no's left and right. Who cares? Keep pushing forward. There's always a way to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Nothing should be stopping you. That's entrepreneurship. Is you just keep on going.
There are better resources than others. There are better coaches than others. There are better sort of trainers than others. And I think that it's important to be like, listen, it's been 50 years, half a century ago, Silicon Valley started building startups. The methodology is there. Yes, it'll depend on whatever you're building, but like trying to figure out from scratch alone. And I think that's where probably a lot of, I think entrepreneurship programs in general sort of stay a little bit too much on the theoretical side. And it's great to do a business model canvas, but you really need actionable steps towards doing stuff. And then, yes, you have a lot of learning and growing to do as a founder, and you should be reading a lot of articles. But I think that the biggest problem that people do when getting into entrepreneurship for the first time is kind of jumping all over the place, trying to piece things together. And they think like, oh, because I don't have the money. Well, guess what? If you're doing things, or if it takes 6 months to do something instead of 1 month, then that's 5 months of living expenses. And if you live in a place like LA, that's 5 times, let's say $3,000. That's like, yeah, that's $15,000. So it's like people don't consider some of the real costs that go into, and that's usually like living expenses, opportunity costs. So it's just so important to just kind of align with people, I think, that you that can really teach you and advance you quickly, and take action.
Expands your mind as to how you could solve a problem or like use resources around you. But ultimately, it comes down to doing it, struggling, failing, wasting great amount of time and maybe money. I've wasted plenty of money and time, and something that I don't do enough is asking for support from the people around you, whoever that may be. I mean, there were a couple of people early on who really took me under their belt as advisors, and I'm forever grateful for them. And they were so supportive. I still did not ask enough from them to support me, which is my own shit. But I think that's also important, is like people who are ahead of you generally, not everyone, but generally, I think are willing to give you like an hour of their time, especially once you build a relationship with them. There are wonderful people that are going to advise you. There are going to be a million people, especially including your friends and family, to tell you exactly how to do your business and how to make it successful. And all of that information is good data, right? You take all that good data and you store it, and you not internalize it. It's a bad word after all we've talked about with ego. You take that data and you let it rest on your brain, okay? And then you realize, but I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, I recognize this problem that I was here to fix, and my intuition and my gut is telling me something, but this is good data. And you take balance in listening to others, getting ideas from others, and then knowing that you are just solving this problem, and you can also listen to yourself. Because I definitely see entrepreneurs who, they get into the space, they lack that confidence in what they're doing, which is normal, completely normal. But then they get advisement from like 6 other people, some of it's conflicting or not, and they're listening to everybody. And it's like, you also need to remind yourself, let's recenter. This is you. You have to know what's best at the end of the day, and you have to make the decision at the end of the day. It's not just about listening to people who supposedly know best. They may know best. They also may not. So take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Tell us some of maybe the biggest mistakes that you see first-time founders, early-stage founders making?
I think the main mistake that I see is that founders get to this point where they say, okay, now I need money. And they just stop working on the business or stop trying to gain traction. And now all they're focused on is raising money. When in reality, like what they probably need is more traction, and that'll give you an easier time to raise money. And there are so many people that maybe I end up working with, I don't end up working with, it doesn't matter, but I always have to verbalize that to them. Like, hey, you're doing great. You're at a great point, but like, you need to, like, here are some ideas. Like, are these other ways that you can gain traction? Can you generate revenue this way? Can you do market validation this way? Like, you do not stop just because you've decided, okay, I'm going to raise money. That's also not what investors are looking for, right? They're not looking for the entrepreneur who is like, okay, now I need money and I'm just going to sit and wait until I get it. Like, no, months are going to go by, 6 months, 8 months will go by before you see that money. They want to invest in entrepreneurs who are like at no end, again, just pushing forward and making progress, as much progress as they can with or without money. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest mistake. It's like, they think, okay, I need money, and then all of a sudden they stop working on building traction. And it's like, no, these need to happen together.
And that's why it's really important to choose the right time to start looking for investment, because investment is a really, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing it with 3 to 6 months traction, then you're doing it wrong, or you're reducing the chances, the likelihood that you will raise and that you'll be able to do that quickly without really taking away a lot of time from operations, which is going to take away from your revenue, your traction, and other things.
Yes.
So that balance is like important, but yeah, the timing is so essential.
Yes.
If not, you just, and there's a great a thing. It's kind of like, either you're the kind of founder who's chasing after investors and chasing after accelerators and chasing after, or you're this guy or girl who's going to do it anyway, and then you start getting chased by the investors, the co-founders, and that's one thing that people forget, specifically like solo founders, right? Like, if you build something pretty cool, it's going to be much easier to convince a co-founder to come on board. It's going to be much easier to convince an entrepreneur, an investor or an accelerator to bring you into their network. It's going to be much easier to do all those things once you've proven what you've done.
Totally.
And if not, well, you're actually setting yourself up for failure, because you're kind of just expecting that things will be given to you.
Right.
And it's terrible to say this, but like, the world doesn't owe you anything,
Investors definitely don't.
Yeah, investors definitely don't.
It's also just adopting that attitude that the power is within you, and you are just as important as the investor. You are the startup. You're the one actually doing the damn thing, right? And investors have nothing to do with their day without you existing. So really having that attitude of, this is an investment opportunity, this is special, this is the shit, right? And you are inviting investors to come join your party, all right? And you got to make that party look real nice so they can come in and enjoy on the fun. But there's a mutual respect to it, right? The second that we look at our investors and we say, we need them, I will do anything to get any investor on board, like, that's not the right attitude to have. You need to have a perspective of, hey, this is an awesome opportunity, and other people are welcome to join if they're the right fit, right? If they're coming with the right intention. There has to be balance there. It's a mutual relationship, just like the employer-employee relationship. It's a mutual relationship. So you need to have that attitude of, oh, I have power too, and I get to negotiate this contract. I get to negotiate this terms. And oh, if I just keep going and gain more traction, yes, my terms and negotiating that contract gives me more leeway and gives me more leverage. So there's definitely leverage at hand. Gain more leverage for yourself and realize that this is a mutual relationship, and you're not just looking for anyone. You want to look for the right person as well.